What do you think is needed to make the scene of a game come alive? Good art? Ambient sounds? Mobs? Well, let us know in the comments, because this is exactly what we tried to do for the last few days. Wasting our sanity to make the game come alive. In the most literal sense of the word. I mean, what the f is this? And spoiler alerts, there are a lot of bats in this video. Welcome back to a new devlog on Adventures Eve, the side-scrolling adventure game Taiko and me are currently working on. If you haven't already, like the video and consider subscribing. Let's continue. After the last devlog, we had actually planned to start development on the boss battle to get the big chunk of the work out of the way. But there was quite some stuff that had to be done first, like some more work on the animation system, adding a timeline and a feature to edit hitboxes with the handles. The life system needed a little more work as well, like adding a basic death screen and redoing the hurt indication because the old one randomly stopped working. After that, it was finally time to add the bats. I already had some ideas in mind, like a dash attack or that bats would go to sleep from time to time so you could see them hanging from the ceiling. I drew up a basic first sketch for the bats, which for now looks too much like a bird, so I'm gonna have to change it later in the video. But for now, it will do. I added the AI for the bats to make them move around quite randomly. If you wonder how the AI works, it's quite simple. Each bat always has a destination point which it flies to in a straight line. The only challenge is to find a point which a bat can fly to without hitting walls and without leaving the scene. To achieve this, the bat chooses a random point within the scene bounds and shoots a ray to check whether it can reach point without hitting a wall. And the bat also checks if the point is smaller than a certain angle, because based on the animation it looks stupid if the bat flies up 90 degrees. Since the bats are quite hard to make out from the background, I brightened up the colors slightly so that they are easier to spot. Up till this point we were not sure if the bats were actually efficient enough or if they needed some more work. So we did some serious performance testing, and QED point proven the bats work and don't hurt the performance of the game. Perfect. This was also the point where I realized that the bats look terribly like birds. So I opened a sprite and drew up an improved version. As I was researching the bats to get some inspiration, I actually kind of went down a rabbit hole. These are so interesting creatures which are, as scientists believe, surprisingly close relatives of ours. They do not have wings like birds, but rather hands with joints like we do, and are able to flex them however they like. But enough of this. I think the new sketch looks so much better than the first one. We even have a corrupted version for later in the game as you get closer to the core. Now let's go back to the question from the intro. What do you think is needed to make the scene of a game come alive? Good art? Ambient sounds? Mobs? Well, let us know in the comments, because this is exactly what we tried to do for the last few days. How to make a scene come alive. And not by throwing 100 monsters into the game. The first and easiest thing to do is to add lights. Set the global light volume to something smaller than 1 and add lights to the elements you want to highlight. And for this scene in particular, there's something else that we can do. Because there's going to be a pond of acid at the bottom, we need to code some water physics, which is surprisingly challenging because there are no solid tutorial describing how it's made. But after some struggle, I was finally able to figure it out. The surface of the water is basically an array of springs which all want to snap back into place after being moved. While they are moving, they can give parts of their energy to their neighboring springs, which gives this nice waving effect. We need to convert this into a mesh now, and luckily this absolute legend from Discord wrote a whole essay telling me how it's done. Honestly, I would not have been able to make it without him or her. Now smash it into the scene, add a particle system, and tada, we got a nice bubbling acid pond. Taiko also started animating the background of the scene, which is going to be kind of the heart of the whole infection. With that, the scene looks so much better than in the beginning. The only thing that we'll have to change is that all the bats are perfectly synced right now. They look like a bunch of robots. But hey, Anyways, this is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to check out the last devlog, you can click here. See you next time.